What's going on? Welcome into another episode of Always Talkin Ball. Tyler Noe, Lance Barton, massive guest today on the show. Lead singer of the Josh Abbott band. Josh Abbott, massive Texas Tech fan, joins us today to talk all things country music and to talk all things college football, Texas Tech football. And trust me when I say this, Josh is an absolute ball knower. Like, he knows his stuff. The interview is great. You guys are going to love it. We appreciate the feedback, comment on YouTube, X, all that stuff, how much you like the interview, because I'm telling you, like, it's a fantastic interview with Josh. Before we get to that, Home Field Apparel. It's our prime sponsor right now. They've got some killer college football stuff over on their website, some vintage gear, some Texas Tech vintage gear, shirts, hats, hoodies, anything you can imagine. And if you type in ATB15 at the checkout in the promo code SPOT, you're going to get 15% off of your first order. So head over to homefieldapparel.com, grab the gear for the upcoming 2025 football season. Lance, let's head to the interview. Joining us today is a man who was raised on the plains of West Texas. You may have seen him once or twice at Billy Bob's. You may know him from songs like She's Like Texas and Settle Me Down, or if your wife is like my wife, songs like Oh Tonight or Wasn't That Drunk, or you may have just seen him around town, Lubbock, Texas. He's a Texas Tech graduate and the lead singer of the Josh Abbott band. Mr. Josh Abbott, thank you so much for hopping on today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Love talking college sports.
Oh yeah, that's all we do here. Obviously, show's called Always Talkin Ball.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, we're a college football show. I promise you, we're gonna get to all things college football and Texas Tech shortly. But man, let's just start off with your beginnings. You went to Tech in what, 02, 03, sometime around that time frame, right?
Yeah, you nailed it. I was there early 2000s. I transferred in. I'd kind of bounced around a couple spots beforehand trying to figure out what I wanted to do and who I wanted to be and the whole thing. And, a lot like the Mac Davis song, I thought happiness was Lubbock, Texas in my rear view mirror. If you don't know that song, you can go check it out. But it's essentially a song about thinking, I'm from here, I got to get away. And you get away and you realize, oh my God, I want to get back. That's what happened to me. I went to college on the far side of the state at a little school in East Texas and just immediately, probably within a few months, realized I had to get back. So transferred back home to Lubbock and went to Texas Tech finally and did the thing. And one of the best decisions I ever made in my life.
Yeah, and Josh, didn't you
Yeah.
start your band with your boys there in college while at Tech?
Yeah, I just graduated. I was kind of playing in undergrad for fun, really, playing some chapter stuff and for our fraternity and um, playing local, open mic nights and stuff. But then when as I was going into grad school, I decided to put together a band for fun, and three of my fraternity brothers played various instruments, and so we just started playing private parties and sorority gigs and local bars and the blue light, and that kind of led to recording some songs and then us having like this really cool organic moment where not only were we getting pretty popular like where we were, like in a weird way, but all across the state of Texas. And I somehow had the foresight to go, this seems like a hard thing to get, right? Momentum. I didn't know anything about the music industry, but I was like, it just seems like this is probably one of the hardest parts to get. So we've got it. Might as well pursue it. And then two of the guys were like, man, we were just doing this for fun. We don't feel like driving all across the state and the country playing, gigs. So we got a few different members and headed down the road. And then over the last, 15, 16, 17 years of touring now, we've just had a ton of fun and changed band members, here and there at times. But it's been awesome. We've had a really fun career and we're still going at it. We're not done by any means.
What were the original plans after college? Because from what I understand, it wasn't music, right?
No, it wasn't. I was getting my master's, and so I had a couple different thoughts. This is crazy, right? So one, I originally thought I was going to go into politics, but I realized I just didn't want to do that. I just didn't think if I was ever going to be in politics, the narcissist in me wanted to be the politician, not the guy who was in the background doing all the work. So I decided, okay, when I was writing my thesis, I was kind of going to gear for two things. I was either going to write about the persuasive strategies implemented in recruiting so that I could write a thesis on the most efficient recruiting strategies and try to lead that down the road into possibly, being a recruiting coordinator or, eventually like what we see like an AD or something, right? But then the other route is kind of the route I ended up writing. Um, because I just felt like I had more connections in that world. And I wrote about the persuasive strategies used in trying to get out of a crisis situation in the oil and gas energy industry. So I guess eventually I was probably just going to try to get a sales job or a HR. I mean, who knows what kind of job I was going to try to get in oil and gas, but I'm really glad it worked out the way it did.
Yes.
You just trying to be Billy, Billy Bob Thornton and Landman?
I mean, yeah, pretty much. Isn't that everyone's goal? Is to be
Yeah.
that. It's been a fun ride, man. I mean, who knows where it would have been. I still feel good about where my life would have gone if I hadn't been in music, but music has been just an incredible roller coaster of fun events and highs and lows. And it led me to my wife and it led to us having children and this podcast here with you now. So I have zero complaints about where it's gone for me.
Yeah, Josh, I mean, honestly, it just seems like that the center of the universe almost around in the country right now. It just seems like it's like around like West Texas. I mean, you've got the red dirt country music.
Love it.
Yeah, red dirt country music is growing like crazy. You've got
Yeah.
Landman, the popularity of the show Landman, and like just like really like featuring and showing like
Sure.
West Texas, and then the popularity of the show Yellowstone. Then Taylor Sheridan ended up like kind of pivoting at the end of Yellowstone to West Texas, to the Four Sixes Ranch. And they're having a show coming out about the Four Sixes Ranch, which, to my understanding, is not too far from the Lubbock area. And of course, Taylor Sheridan has ownership in that. And then, which leads me into, there is, in my lifetime, this is the most hype that I have seen for Guns Up and Texas Tech going into a football season. And I'm sure you got to be super excited about that, man, being just a diehard Tech fan like you are.
Well, obviously this is a football podcast, but in terms of just overall athletics, Texas Tech is on fire right now. We're catching everybody's attention and eye because of what we're spending in NIL. Yeah. I mean, and when I say we, it's a handful of guys really leading that charge. But still, there's a lot of people involved in smaller ways and other ways, and so just really as a fan base, I think we've really embraced this opportunity upon us to say, hey. I remember when NIL was first mentioned back years ago, and so many people were like, oh, great, the rich will get richer. And I was like, are you kidding me? Everyone's got green dollars, everybody, right? This is our opportunity to even the playing field. If we get the right guys donating money, we can hang with anyone in the country, right? And so in terms of program tradition and trophies and history and things like that, we're behind in some of that stuff. But you start saying, hey, we can spend money to get these guys, sky's the limit. Come to Lubbock. So that's what we've seen. And we've seen it in every sport. I mean, we're just turning heads in every single sport. And right now it's just a really fun time. It's always been a fun time to be a Red Raider, but it feels like we're on the verge of some real success all across college athletics. And getting back to football, I mean, the hype's real. We have not had this much hype going into a season probably since the Crabtree Harrell era, where, the Leach era really, where kind of on an annual basis, we were expecting to win 8 to 10 games. And a few times that didn't happen, but most of the time we had really successful seasons. And of course, that one 2008 magical season was an unreal roller coaster where we were like number 2 or number 3 in the country, I think. And, but anyway, I feel pretty confident about this year. And I think the other thing that gives us hope is something you guys talked about in your last call or one of your recent podcasts was there's so many teams with hope, right? Like when you get to the playoffs, y'all mentioned when you were talking that podcast, you're kind of talking about SMU and I don't remember who the other school was, but you were talking about Arizona State. And it's just like, hey, we can win it all. We can win it all. Why not us, right? And I think that's the mentality of Texas Tech right now. It's like, hey, the Big 12 is very open in terms of the ability to win it. We don't have like an Alabama or a Georgia in our conference. We have a lot of really good football programs, but we don't have an Ohio State, right? So for us to have the ability to like, let's look at this, go week by week and hopefully get through the season with, 10 victories or more, get to the Big 12 championship, win that game, we're in the playoff. You lose that game, still might make the playoff. I think it's kind of absurd that the Big 12 has to win the Big 12 championship in order to have a team in and then hope that you get two in. That's silly to me. Like, I mean, there's no reason the Big 12 shouldn't have two teams in the playoff, but I think that's where we'll see. And I love Texas Tech's odds this year of making that final group and, hopefully competing on a national level and getting some victories that no one sees coming.
Yeah, we'll get back to Tech here in a second, but let's broaden it out here. You just kind of alluded to like kind of the college football playoff, and what are your thoughts on that? Obviously you mentioned, frustrating for a Big 12 fan to go into the season and be like, we got to win this thing to get in. Like, obviously the ACC, we saw that last year getting two teams in, Clemson and SMU. I'm not sure where the disconnect was because Iowa State was still a really good team.
Sure.
Like you said, I mean, and you get one of
Well,
these.
there was one Big 12 team last year that beat both Iowa State and Arizona State during the regular season. That was our Red Raiders. If we hadn't lost that TCU game, we lost by 1 point in that game. We played pretty decent, I thought, that game. I think we lost on a field goal towards the end of the game, right? And if that goes a different way and we win that game, we're in the Big 12 championship playing a team we had already beaten. That doesn't mean we win again, but it just means that's where we're at.
And even and then you see Arizona State go to the Peach Bowl and they push Texas to the brink, right? And they were so close to winning that game, had them at fourth down.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wonder if that kind of momentum carries over this year for the Big 12 into the playoff and maybe they are a multiple bid league. But give me your thoughts on kind of the state of the conference right now, because when you were in school, this Big 12 doesn't look anything like when we were in school.
Obviously the Big 12 when we were there was it was A&M and UT and Oklahoma and Nebraska and Colorado. It was and it shifted, obviously losing some teams and then gaining some teams, adding TCU and Houston. Now it's obviously shifted a little bit more and grown west, adding those Pac-12 schools that we did. And so it's an interesting Big 12. It feels like a very exciting Big 12. It feels like, you have the potential for, games that are spreads that are going to be above, totals that are going to be above 70 every single week. It has that ability, and then every now and then you'll bet the over, and the total you'll end up the final score be 24-23, and you're just like awesome. But
been there.
Most of the time we're going to have these higher scoring games. That's college football in general now. I think sometimes we kind of stereotype the Big 12 as like, oh, they don't play defense. I'm like, I mean, have you seen some of these SEC games and some of these other games? Wisconsin's running the spread now. Like, everyone's trying to score more, spread it out. It's more exciting for the fans. It gives you an opportunity to win the game, but I feel like you're going to see a lot of that. And, it's really fun because I think something else we're kind of wrapping our heads around is all these new places that we're playing, It's all these road games that we've never been, like, how's our team going to handle Utah at Utah? How's our team? We saw how we did at Arizona State. That's great. What are we going to do when we have to go to Boulder? What are we going to have to do when we have to go to Cincinnati? I mean, there's just like some weird spots in our schedule. I'm not sure we're playing at Cincinnati this year. I'm trying to remember, but it's just an example of the types of places and we're trying to wrap our heads around, like, what's that environment going to be like? What are those fans like? What's this team like? So I think it's really exciting because you don't have this like, well, this team's for sure going to probably win the Big 12, and then here's the three teams that'll compete against them. I mean, in my opinion, I think there's multiple teams in the Big 12 that you could see winning it all this year. We saw a few years ago, TCU came out of nowhere and just got on a hot streak and ran the table and just somehow won every single game in a Disney movie fashion, right? And then last year you had Arizona State kind of come out of nowhere and do the thing. So, who knows what that school will be this year, but hopefully it'll be Tech.
Well, and it's crazy, too. You talk about the teams that you're playing. One of the teams you're not playing is Baylor. And I think it's absolutely ridiculous. That's one of the downfalls of the conference realignment and all the moving parts is that for the first time since 1955, we are not going to have the Butt Bowl. And you're only playing one team from Texas. Like, you're only playing Houston, and everybody else is out of state. It's crazy.
That's interesting. So I don't have the schedule in front of me. So we don't play TCU.
Mm-mm.
We don't play Baylor or TCU. That's crazy.
It's the Big 12 schedule makers did them dirty there.
So we only play Houston.
Yeah, I can't remember. Like, I'm sure it's got to be odd as a Texas Tech fan in general. Like, obviously Texas left, the conference, but
it's a lot.
Not playing Baylor, not playing Texas, not playing TCU, but especially not playing Baylor or Texas both in the same season for a Tech fan. That's got to be strange.
It's a little strange. It absolutely is. When we lost A&M, that felt strange because like how many years in a row have we played A&M before that? Going back to the Southwest Conference days, right? So that felt really weird. Losing UT and OU felt like another step of weirdness. And then now, like you mentioned, we're not even playing TCU or Baylor this year. It's just like, this is what college athletics, this is what they wanted, right? They wanted these huge super conferences that each have time slots in multiple areas throughout the college football Saturday where they can maximize profit share and all these fun things. And it's like, well, that's what you wanted. Well, this is what you get. And now you get fans who might not quite be as excited about the matchups as they were before, because what's fun about playing Baylor and TCU and A&M and UT and all these schools is that your friends and your neighbors and the parents of the kids who are in class with your kids, right? They're from those areas. Guys you went to high school with that went to different colleges. You can talk shit to them, right? Guys you've met in life as an adult, in the workforce, and you become friends with, and you get your one friend that's the TCU friend. You kind of haze their ass all week long about the game, and then they end up winning. So you're just like, oh God, I don't want to see them on Monday. That's what makes a lot of this so fun. And when you lose that sense of community, right? When kids stop caring because you're like, well, I don't even know a UCF alumni. I don't know one person. I don't know anybody who went to Cincinnati. I don't care. Now it becomes just a game as opposed to something more. And so I do think that's a sad part of what we're seeing in college athletics currently. And I hope that at some point we realize, okay, maybe the regional, conferences, maybe they were onto something there, and maybe at some point down the road we'll get back to playing Texas and an A&M every year. But until then, it is what it is, and I guess we'll just have to make the best of the schedule.
Yeah, the TV partners have pretty much been ruling college football for the last few years, and the pageantry, the passion, the rivalries, that's what separates college football, in our opinion, from any other sport. I mean, college basketball too has them as well, but college football especially, just the passion, the rivalries, all of that, like all the things that you were just alluding to there, Josh, is what separates college football from other sports, especially pro sports.
Yeah, and you care more too. I feel like the players. I've been friends with so many players over the years, going back to when I was in college, and still good friends with those guys that played. And something we talk about is how, like, when you got recruited and you went to go play at Texas Tech, there was a kid from your hometown or your high school or someone that you played, nowadays, they play 7-on-7 and they do all these things throughout the summers, and they're becoming friends with all these other D1 athletes that eventually go to other schools. When those kids go to Baylor and TCU and UT and all that, and you go to Tech, it's kind of fun, right? It makes that game more meaningful because you want to beat the shit out of that guy that was in your district in high school. And now you don't really have that. You're like, man, I'm not sure I know one person that plays for Arizona, but that's the game you got on the schedule that week. So in one sense, it might help Tech a little bit with the lack of familiarity that other schools have with us, right? I mean, just look at our year last year. I thought we had a pretty good team last year, and we ended up getting rolled by Baylor, and we lost that kind of just game we should have won against TCU. Well, now we don't have to play those two schools, So the two schools that beat us last year, like, they're off our schedule. Now we're focused on teams, that we did beat, and some other teams we have the opportunity to beat. So maybe that lack of familiarity this next year will help us.
Yeah, and just kind of transferring now, Josh, to guns up to the Red Raiders on the field this coming up year. That's right. There you got it right there. Just give us your thoughts on you. So Tech has depending on which publication you look at, either the number 1 or number 2 ranked transfer portal class in the nation.
Sure.
All of these studs that they're bringing in through the portal, what they're bringing back already too as well with QB Baron Morton, the additions on the staff. Just tell us what your thoughts are on how the job that Joey McGuire, the head man there at Texas Tech, how he's doing.
Incredible. I mean, from the second I met that guy, you felt passion that he has, and there's all sorts of different types of coaches. There's coaches who focus on one side of the ball. There's coaches who are deep dive in X's and O's, and they're not that great at the other things. And there's coaches like Mac Brown who, I don't know how much of the playbook he had memorized, but he could run a program, right? I don't know if he could have called the plays. He probably could have. I'm not trying to discount Mac. He's awesome. I just saw him a couple weeks ago, but
great CEO.
There's just different. There's just different styles, and McGuire's somewhere in there. I definitely think he knows his X's and O's. I mean, that guy knows football, right? And he knows people, and he knows how to run a program, and he's just kind of involved in everything. And he's always going to call you back, and he just goes the extra mile with people. He gives his phone number to anybody and everybody. I've seen him give his phone number to just random people that I thought there's no way this guy's like, hey, can I, holler at you sometime? I'm like, there's no way this is going to happen. Coach McGuire gives him his phone number. And I'm like, is that the same phone number I have? Like, I thought I was cool for having this phone number. But he's just awesome, man. And he's just great at motivating his own people and his own team and building relationships. And I just think when you see that culture, we all know over the years, there's been such an emphasis on that term and what that means. And culture can be different in every place. As long as you have a culture that works and everyone's all in, that culture can win. It might be different than another program's winning culture. It's not copy and paste, but it's the belief in one style of like vibe, so to speak. And we've got that going on right now. And Texas Tech is cooking, and Coach McGuire is a great coach. We brought in new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator, and I thought the guys we had before were doing a solid job, but familiarity breeds contempt, and after a few seasons of some games that maybe could have gone another way, we went another way, and we brought in my opinion, 2 of the top assistants that were out there, and I feel like they were on everyone's radars. So for us to get those guys,
you are speaking Lance's love language.
Man, we're about to get off into this, guys. We're about to dive deep.
I mean, it's just
baby.
It's just, on offense, we're going to continue doing what we do. I hate that we stole that offensive coordinator from GJ, my buddy down at Texas State. I gave him a hard time on that one, but it is what it is. And we're excited to get a guy who understands the kind of offense that we run and is going to bring it kind of a different lens on that same offense now. Maybe some, different formations, some different, routes, combinations and such. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball and, we'll still stay in that nickel with 3 down linemen, essentially. I don't know. I think it'll be really interesting to watch Tech. Excuse me, let me start that phrase over. I think it will be very interesting to see Tech on passing down situations and long distance, because the amount of edge rush talent that we have, and a lot of those guys being in that 270 range, right, feels like we can get away with 1-2 technique interior lineman, and now put 1 Mike linebacker out there, and now you've opened up the ability to put 4 edge rushers out there instead of just 1 or 2. And I feel like we're going to see some real pressure existing. I mean, if you look at through the transfer portal, we got Romello Height from Georgia Tech, and then of course we got Bailey from Stanford, who is going to be a first-round pick, right? Or second. I mean, he's going to be a day 1, day 2 pick. I mean, the guy's just incredible. He was one of PFF's highest rated edge rushers last year. And then you look at who's got drafted and gone. So he's going to be right up there. And then you look at who's behind him. Dylan Spencer was a blue chip 4-star recruit who's just had some injury history. And there's 3 or 4 other guys behind him that were literally the same 4-star blue chip recruits that are all kind of redshirt freshmen and sophomores. And I'm like, man, there's going to be some moments we get on that field and brush that quarterback in a way that you have not seen Texas Tech do ever. Not just in a long, long time. I just don't think we've ever had that kind of lean speed. When I say lean, I'm talking 260, right? But, that kind of speed, muscle combination. And so that'll be really interesting. And then obviously we'll be dropping back 5 I really like our secondary as well. We brought in a couple guys in that unit too. But the truth is you don't need your secondary to be Deion Sanders elite level cover guys if you're rushing the quarterback in within 3 seconds, right? We've seen that through football through all the years. Like we got to get to that quarterback in less than 3 seconds, and I like our ability to do that this year.
And you've got you mentioned the edge rushers. You've also got a big space eater in the middle that you're going to have in your defense that you guys brought in, and Lee Hunter from you.
He's a
Man,
dog.
he's a stud.
You talk about Lee Hunter?
Yeah, I mean,
from Mobile, Alabama. What do you know about
right,
that,
man.
Lance?
I know a little bit about that guy. I mean, you're talking about a guy, man, that like Texas and some of these other before Texas Tech started jumping into the NIL scene here with everybody. You're like everybody wanted Lee Hunter.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's a dude, man. And I had a good talk just recently, a week or so ago. Do you know SJ Tuohy?
Yeah,
from
so I graduated from Liberty, and
Tui,
so he was
sorry.
at Liberty.
I said his name wrong. I always say his last name wrong because I start thinking about how it's spelled and I start getting worried about it. But SJ, friend of mine, kind of loosely through the years, has come to my concerts and we've become buddies and stuff. And of course, he had a friendship with Lee, dating back to their shared time together at UCF recently. And he was just the highest things to say about that guy. So I think that guy's going to be a disruptive force on the interior. But you also look at who else we brought in. We brought in that guy from Northern Illinois, Sky Howard, right? Isn't that his name? And another PFF, highly rated, guy. So, you're talking about immensely improving these interior, linemen along with the guys we already had that were doing a pretty good job. We got a dude from Wichita Falls that's like probably a senior by now, and he's 6'5", 300. So, you get those three guys up front as well as some of the guys behind them in the depth chart. You get these edge rushers we're talking about, and then you look at our interior mics kind of in the back, where we got, I think his name's Ben Hazlitt, just an incredible tackle machine, and Jacob Rodriguez, who just is incredible. A guy we could have lost to a bigger school, but we were able to keep thanks to this NIL thing. I feel really good. I might have gotten that first name wrong, and I hope he doesn't see this and get upset at it. But anyway, maybe it's Ben
Roberts, but you're good, man. You're good.
Ben Roberts, but he's from Hazlitt. Is that
probably.
right?
I'm
I think he's from Hazlitt. That's why I said
not sure on that. But dude, these cats that you're mentioning, they're going to be in the middle of that defense. Are just going to be freeing.
They're studs.
They're just going to be freeing up.
And they got to remember, hey, Ben Roberts, if you end up watching this, I'm sorry I messed up your name. Like, I'm just a dad, dude. I don't have time to memorize everybody's names, but I'm doing my best here.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I know you got your handles on socials as Josh Abbott Band, but you might need to change that to @JoshKnowsBall because you're talking some ball right now. With us.
I love it. I just think we're primed for success. When you follow it as passionately as I do, and you see and you know the history of what we've done and now what we've recruited, and you can flip it to the other side of the ball. Where some of these things apply in the same way: the offensive line, the depth that we have, and the size that we have. The NIL transfers that we brought in to shore up both tackle positions and the interior of our line kind of coming back. We have 8 guys on our offensive line that have starting experience. 8 with starting experience. It's something that we haven't had at Texas Tech in a very long time. Our left tackle, y'all talked about him recently in a podcast. Howard Sampson that came in from North Carolina. 6'8", 340. Let's go. Let's maul some people.
Right there.
That right tackle we brought in from Miami, Ohio.
Illinois State.
Well, that's Zambrano, right? I'm talking about Will Hodos. Is that his name?
Okay.
Let's see. Yep, Will Hodos. Yep, you're right.
He's a stud. He's another guy that did really well when you break down the film last year, at the level he played at. So you look at those guys and you say, okay, now we got some guys who can crease some holes and give Barron some time to throw the ball. And then what does that look like? Well, you got the running back that we got from USC, and as well as the 2 guys that we had in the depth chart last year. So we got 3 backs that we feel good about in various situations. Third and short, second and long, whatever it is. We've got just different packages for their skill sets, and receiver wise, they're all over the place. Tons of speed on the outside. Some leadership as well in that position with Coy Eakin and some of the other guys that we have there. And I don't know, man. I'm gonna sound like I'm a Texas Tech parade guy right now, right? I'm buying all the Kool-Aid, man. I'm swimming in it. My swimming pool's red right now, but that's the life I'm living because I feel the passion, I feel the movement, I feel what NIL has been able to do for Texas Tech on top of having, it's a perfect storm. You can't just have NIL if you don't have culture and if you don't have the right team and program. And it has just been a perfect storm of bringing in the right guy with the right attitude and all the fans and alumni buying in and the NIL opportunities. And now this this schedule that we have coming up this year. And let's go.
Yeah. And some of the facilities that Texas Tech is pumping out these days, I mean, they are next to nobody. Like they are sick looking on social media. The NIL world is going crazy, like you're talking about. Have you had a chance to meet GM James Blanchard yet?
I have. I text with him sometimes.
Dude,
I'll send him every now and then. I don't do it as much as I used to because, again, I have kids now and I just have so many other things to do. But I used to keep up with recruiting and really pay attention to recruits that were off the radar, maybe being recruited by some of the smaller schools who have to really do deep dive evaluations on guys to see if they can slip through the cracks and find guys and pay attention to offers. And every now and then I'll send somebody and I'll be like, hey, we have to get this guy. This is a guy that should be on your radar. I don't do that as much anymore because, man, Blanchard's got it down. That guy is a stud. And I'm so glad we kept him from going to Notre Dame. I mean, he's just the way we're approaching football and recruiting and allowing the freedom for these assistants to focus on coaching is incredible because the biggest whip in coaching throughout college athletics has been the amount of recruiting and workload that these guys have to do. I mean, these positional coaches, they got to recruit, they got to evaluate recruits, they got to recruit the kid, they got to evaluate their own team, they have to scout for what's coming up ahead. I mean, they're working 18-hour days every single day of the week.
Yeah.
It's not something that's stable, in my opinion, for a human. And so I think having a guy like Blanchard take some of that off their plate really frees up their ability to prepare their players better.
Yeah, and Josh, it's not just the players, the facilities, obviously the transfer portal, like all these things that like even us are like really pumping that Texas Tech Kool-Aid that you mentioned here this offseason. Like just the staff, man, in general, overall, that McGuire has acquired around. And you were talking about the coordinators, and like Tyler mentioned, like, you're really speaking my language when we're talking to coordinators there. I don't know if you know this or not, but like Shill Wood might be like my like long lost, like beloved like cousin or something. Dude, I've been a huge Shill Wood fan for a while, and a lot of it has to do with because he added an extra few dollar bills to my pocket in the past with you were talking about betting some overs.
Yep.
Nobody likes betting unders
Yep.
until you win.
No.
But I've bet some unders in the past on some teams that Shill Wood was the DC of.
Yeah.
Dude, did you know this? Shill Wood has been a defensive coordinator for 5 years. He has never not had a defense that was ranked in the top 35 in the entire nation in total defense and scoring defense. At Army, at Troy, at Tulane, at Houston, and now at Texas Tech. Dude, you and a lot of people are saying a word that honestly most of the casual fans did not know that existed in Lubbock, which is the word defense, because of Shill Wood and who they're bringing in.
I completely agree. I think, you're giving a guy like that some of the blue chip talent that we have now, specifically in the front seven, which again, we talked about, really gives a little bit more freedom to your, back five. I'll be curious how what kind of zone we're running, in terms of when we're pressuring the quarterback and such. But I'm pretty excited to see what he does with this team. And, it's gonna help tremendously that he just upgraded teams as well, coming from Houston to Texas Tech. And yeah, all you Houston fans, that's what I just said. You all heard me, but it's just the truth.
I love Josh. What do you think this year? Like, give us your prediction? Do you think Texas Tech lives up to the hype and wins the Big 12?
Absolutely, I do. Now, are we going undefeated? I don't know. Because just like statistically, we've never done that before. And typically like one or two teams do that in a season, right? Even just getting to the bowl game. So I'm like, I'm not going to say we're going to go undefeated. I don't want to project a loss on us. We could go through that schedule. I bet you got that schedule and we could rattle off W's and L's, but I feel pretty good about us going 10-2 and winning the Big 12 championship and going to a playoff. I absolutely do. Doesn't mean it'll happen because, as you know, football is a game of many different factors, and one of them is being healthy. And if you get a few bad breaks in some areas, so it's just quarterback, that can change the team a little bit. Now, I do like the backup quarterback situation. That kid, Will Hammond, who's the backup, he's a stud. I fully believe it. I think, he played a little bit as a true freshman last year in a couple games, and, it's a tough spot to be in for any true freshman, especially when you're thin in some areas that are pretty important, such as offensive line, and your defense isn't, playing necessarily incredible. The bowl game against Arkansas was another tough spot to kind of be in, but I fully believe, with a year under his belt and now having an upgraded offensive line and a better defense on the other side of the ball, that can completely change the way a guy has to play the game. So if something unfortunately happens to Barron, I feel good about the backup, but I hope nothing happens to Barron because that's a great kid, man. I've met that kid since when he's a true freshman coming to Tech. He is just such a great guy, and I want the best for him. And that the mental toughness that he's got to have, just because season after season he's just had a different injury or something happen, and so for him to just hang in there and stay in there, you want this for this guy. You want to see him succeed at a high level, and so I hope that's what happens. But yeah, I think I really believe we can win 10 games this year and go to the playoffs, and then why not us?
Dude, let's do it. Let's go through the schedule. I got pulled up right here. We got first two, Arkansas Pine Bluff. You're gonna get that one. You got Kent State week 2, worst team in FBS. That's an easy one.
I feel pretty good about that one. Yeah.
Oregon State week 3. I mean, they're no longer.
I feel pretty good about that one. They've been cherry picked for 2 years in a row now, and their best guys leaving because they don't want to play in a joke of a conference against nobody with no NIL program. So we got that W. There's 3-0.
Week 4, you go to Rice-Eccles Stadium and you play our boy Kyle Whittingham and the Utah Utes. That's gonna be
a tough one. That's a tough one. At Utah, I'm not sure what the elevation looks like up there, but I just think over the years of being a college football fan and seeing the different programs that waltz in that stadium thinking they're going to win, they get their ass kicked and they waltz right back out. I do not want to give us an L there, but we've got to take 1 or 2 this season because that's just the laws of probability. So let's just, Lord, please forgive me. And Joe McGuire, if you see this, I want to be wrong here, but if I've got to pick an L on the schedule, it's probably at Utah. It's the one that makes the most sense on paper.
Yeah. Next week's a bye week, and then you get at Houston.
Oh, W.
You would.
We're going to put the wood. We're going to put the wood on those boys in H-Town.
I don't know why I haven't thought of that. I'm going to start stealing that, John. Throughout the year of Texas Tech's playing defense, and they're shutting people down, I'm just going to be like, look at the Red Raiders just laying the wood.
Laying down the wood
of that team, man. Love it.
Okay.
Love it.
Homecoming this year is the Jayhawks coming to town.
We're going to beat their ass. That's easy.
Love it. Next week after that, you got to go play the reigning Big 12 champions in their backyard down at Arizona State.
We got that. I feel good about that. We beat them last year. And didn't we play at Arizona State? Or no, that was in Lubbock. That game was in Lubbock.
I think it was in Lubbock.
It was in Lubbock. I still like our chances. I know it's a road game, but until it proves to be a hostile environment, I'm not particularly worried about playing there, right?
Yeah.
It's like a resort town. There's nothing intimidating about going there. I mean, when you roll up to Utah and play the Utes, there's something a little bit more local and spirit filled, right? Like everybody there is, just like in Lubbock, you're 110% in on the Red Raiders. But I don't get that vibe when you think about Arizona State. And just saw a video of Kenny Dillingham talking about their in-state recruiting and how they're going to have to shift mentalities to kind of flip the script and keep some of their best players in state home. to me, that doesn't say like, oh, we're an intimidating force right now. So I think they had a really good year last year, but they lost Scatabo, they lost some other guys. I know the quarterback's back, but what if he gets hurt? I don't know. I could see them being a big disappointment next year in football and not quite running the table again. So I'll give us a W there.
Okay, so the halfway mark, we're sitting at 5-1, in good shape.
Yep.
Got home game against Oklahoma State. Gundy took it on the chin last year. I think
Yeah.
they were one of the Big 12 favorites last year with Utah and Kansas State, and I mean that was the worst year he's had in a long time, probably ever.
It was shocking because they had more returning starters than anyone else in the Big 12, if I remember correctly, going into last season. And everyone was like, man, with this kind of team, all these super seniors and COVID year guys, they've got all these fifth and sixth year guys playing. They got a lot of men out there among boys, and they just couldn't put it together. Oklahoma State is a fun place. I love playing in Stillwater. That's a cool school, and I like our rivalry that we have between the two. But I feel like we're really seeing a difference in where the programs are heading. I think Oklahoma State is kind of struggling a little bit, and I think Texas Tech is thriving. It's a home game. We're getting that W. We're 6-1.
Next game, let me tell you what, Texas Tech's road schedule this year it's got to be the toughest in Big 12 because next game is at Kansas State. Got to go to Manhattan.
That's a tough one for us. I'm not sure how I'm going to go on this because Kansas State was a really tough one, but didn't we beat Kansas State 2 years ago, the last time we went there? You'd have to look that up.
Yeah.
But I believe we beat Kansas State at Kansas State in the last 2 or 3 years. So that tells me it's doable. Is their team this season going to be as typically as good and solid as they have been in the past? Have they been recruiting? What's their NIL program look like? So I know that team's going to play hard. They're going to play with a lot of heart. That coach is awesome. You talk about a culture fit. That head coach they hired was outstanding for them, and they're going to fight us and bloody our noses, and it's going to be a tough game. But I think we can win that game.
Okay. Then you follow that up with a home date with BYU, which we don't know what's going on with their quarterback situation. All the rumors out there, but
yeah,
I mean, they obviously a surprise team last year too.
Surprise team last year. Won't be a surprise team this year. We'll beat their ass. That's another one.
Home dub in Lubbock. Love it, baby.
I love it. And then you got UCF coming home right after that. So I mean, I'm not even going to let you talk.
I feel good about that.
Yeah.
Let's give Lee Hunter 3 sacks that game.
Yeah.
And let's really show those Florida boys what Texas football is about.
So you're 10-1. You get a bye week the week before Thanksgiving, and
so I gave us 10 wins already, huh?
10 wins already. But
I
then
am drinking.
You get a bye week before Thanksgiving, and then Saturday after Thanksgiving. I mean, dreams have been dashed in Morgantown. And you got to go. You got to go to West Virginia to try to get a spot in the Big 12
Country
championship.
roads, take me home, Josh.
Like honestly, if we're 10-1 going into this game, we lose, we're probably still in the Big 12 championship.
Yeah, could be.
So that's an interesting scenario here, but I like the fact that we're getting a bye week before this game. Doesn't that feel pretty? That feels pretty like it's in the cards. It feels like we're going to be prepared for that game and a little more rested than typical. But you're right. I mean, it's always something in Morgantown. Those guys can hang out. If we didn't have the bye week, I might consider giving us the L there. But because of the bye week and the rest and everything else, I'm going to feel pretty good about our squad. I'm going to say we're win that game. We're 11-1. Yeah, if I'm wrong about any of these games, it was probably at Kansas State.
Yeah. No,
that was the one I'm kind of like, I like our abilities to win that game, but on the road, that team's going to play us tough and physical. So, that's a possible loss there to get us to 10-2, but maybe we're 11-1.
I mean, 11-1 is a big difference from 10-2, especially going in. I think if you're 11-1 going into the Big 12 championship game and you lose it, I think you could sneak in the playoffs still for sure. 10-2 going in the Big 12 championship, it's going to be a struggle to get in the playoff if you lose.
Yeah. Absolutely. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So, I'm definitely drinking the Kool-Aid and hopefully these guys make me look good this season, being all in because I'm always all in on this Texas Tech team. I'm always optimistic about where we can be, where the ceiling is going to be. And we don't always hit it very often. Most of the time we don't, but I just feel different about it this year. Last year I felt really good about our team. I really felt like last year with the schedule being wide open, that we could win, but I feel the same way about this year now. So yeah, let's get it done.
And Josh, you should feel that way. Not just as obviously, like, we know you're obviously a diehard Texas Tech fan, but from a very non-biased perspective here, you really should be as excited
Yeah,
as you are about this team this year for what they're going to be putting on the field, on paper,
yeah,
with the coaching staff, with everything that's going on there right
yeah,
now. And like you mentioned, the Big 12, the reason why it's the most fun it's the most fun conference in college football right now, because of all of the parity, and even the numbers say that in Vegas, like the win totals that are out right now. There is a 7-game difference between the the best projected team in the Big Ten and the worst projected team in the Big Ten, as far 10.5 wins and 3.5 wins are the best and lowest of the Big Ten. In the Big 12, it's 8.5 and 5.5. Only 3 games
yeah,
separate who's projected to finish at the top of the Big 12 and at the
yeah.
bottom of the Big 12. It's the only conference you can say what happened last year. It's the only conference that you can say where teams that are projected to finish like 12th or 13th or something in the league could win the damn thing. But that's what. So you
Yeah,
should be
I
excited.
think I absolutely think the Big 12 is wide open. I think we are absolutely prepped with the schedule that we have, particularly home schedule. The amount of depth we have in the interior on the lines on both sides. It just feels like the year. If we don't get it done this year, I think it'll be really deflating for fans. Because we all see how talented this team is and how great of a coach we have and the assistant coaches. And we just feel pretty good about it. So yeah, hopefully this is the year, and then get to the playoffs and got to figure it out from there. I mean, who are we going to be playing in the playoffs? An SEC team? Are we going to get, um, because if you think about it, if we run the table the way we just talked about, right, we're probably in the same spot Arizona State was in. Well, they got a first round bye last year, this past one, and then they got a home game. Didn't they change all that, the way
Yep.
that's going to look for this coming fall? So when we look back at where they were ranked, they ain't getting that first round bye
Right.
this time, right?
Correct.
And do they host a home game for that first
Dep-
round?
Probably not last year, but I would love if Texas Tech was able to get there and they get a home playoff game and
Woo!
Tia's fly,
Dude,
man.
could you imagine?
I'd
Could you
love to
imagine
see
that,
that.
Josh? A home game, a home playoff game in Lubbock, dude.
If we have a home playoff game, I myself am going to pull tortillas out of my ass. I'm going to throw them onto the field. I'm going to be a part of the movement because that is going to be something rocking, unprecedented history. Just a playoff game in Lubbock. That's incredible.
Yeah. All right, back to the band real quick. You guys, we're taking a little
Yeah.
bit of a step back. This year, kind of, still going on tour and all that stuff, but kind of, a little bit less dates. How many games are you able to catch during the season? Like, do you schedule
Yeah.
your tour kind of based on, okay, this Saturday they've got game,
Yeah.
I got to catch that.
For years, I really did. I would hold off on our touring for the fall until the Big 12 schedule came out. And then I'd start trying to figure out how I could be in some of these college towns on road games and
Oh
how I
yeah,
could be in Lubbock. And try to maximize that window. There were years I got to go to 4 or 5 games. Typically go to the bowl game, but there's been years where I made one game, or I think there was one year I made 0 games just because of the schedule. The way it's looking this year, I feel pretty good about getting up to Lubbock for a couple games. And then the road schedule, I don't know. I'm just kind of busy with my own tour schedule on Saturdays. And again, it's kind of funny. We talked earlier about like playing these new teams and playing some of these road games. It's just like, I mean, I just, there's just some places I don't really care to go to. Like last year, I really didn't want to go watch us play at Washington State. Nothing against Eastern Washington, because that's a great. I mean, if anything, Eastern Washington is a lot like Lubbock. It's this rural area that's somewhat forgotten by national mainstream media, but it's a lot of just great people who work hard in agriculture and have great communities. But it's just a little different trying to get to some of those games, those road games at Morgantown. That's tough to get to.
Mhm.
It's not easy to get to Morgantown, right? You got to like fly into Pittsburgh or somewhere else. You can't even fly in unless you're flying private, and
Yeah.
so I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to make a couple games. One of my buddies from college is getting inducted into the Tech Hall of Fame for athletics. Ryan Aycock. Shout out to my buddy. He was safety back in the early 2000s. And excuse me, I got my allergies going here. But anyway, he's got a ceremony on November 7th. And that next day, I think, is when we play the home game versus BYU. So
nice.
I fully believe I'll be there for that one. And we'll see what happens.
Nice, man. Well, Josh, I seriously we can't thank you enough for taking the time.
I appreciate you having me on
it. And well, we were really, again, we obviously we're fans of your music, and we, you put out great music, and we're fans of just, red dirt country music in general. But it's the fact that we've heard you on other shows before. I heard you on Andy Staples in the past, and your overall just like ball knowledge, which you just displayed right here for all of our listeners and viewers. And obviously, too, the excitement around Texas Tech football this year. We wanted to have you on to talk about Tech because we know that you know damn ball, bro.
Yeah.
And we wanted to have you on for that.
I appreciate that. Love talking ball. What's the Jim Harbaugh quote? I like guys who like football. Guys who like football like me. You know what I mean? We talk about football, so that's my thing here too. And maybe we can get a follow up at some point in the season. Hopefully, we're 8-1, and you guys are like, "Hey, dude, you were right every single game so far," and we can talk. And maybe at some point we can share some fun stories about college football and memories, and some of the guys I know that played and are in the NFL now and doing their thing too. So yeah, I would love to come back on. I appreciate you guys. I'll be listening this season, and thanks for having me on today.
Thanks, Josh.
I appreciate it.